Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome to the podcast. Quick notes. This version, I had to download the live Twitch VOD because I was dumb and forgot to record it locally. So at the end of the video portion just kind of cuts out because on Twitch, it decided to get all wonky, but the audio portion is still good. So thank you so much for joining and enjoy the podcast. I like our intro music. Yeah. Okay.
I like it too.
Hello and welcome to Learning the Law, a podcast about all things legal with a focus on current events, where we try to teach you things in an hour. My name is Ashley, aka Phoenix Nymphy, and my co-host, who is the man of the hour, my husband, Ron. This podcast is purely educational and should not be taken as legal advice. This podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship. This podcast is based on his interpretation of relevant law, and any opinions expressed are the opinions of the individual making them and do not reflect the opinions of any firm, company, or other individuals. Ron is a licensed practicing attorney in the state of California.
Yes, I am.
Ooh, you are loud.
And I have been since September 15th of 1999.
Yeah, you got super loud there. Don't worry about it. I will address you on my end. Fine.
Okay.
Because I had you super loud. There we go. All right. I think the levels are a little bit better. So we've been on hiatus for quite some time. The last podcast we did, we were talking about the first 2 days of the Chauvin trial. And we tried to do a couple of live streams on TikTok to discuss. Unfortunately, in the middle of all of that, you ended up going to the hospital. So we were unable to really, we could not do what we had promised because medical stuff kind of took over. So would you like to talk about your last month and where we've been?
Well, basically, I was told by a doctor, an infectious wound specialist, that I needed to go to the hospital and get an abscess drained from my ankle. And he insisted I go to, I'll say the hospital. I don't have a problem saying that.
I think most people know that we live in Southern California. So
yeah. He said, go to Loma Linda Hospital. And this is a second specialist that told me to go to Loma Linda, and it is the best hospital in our area.
Yep.
So I went to Loma Linda, and it turns out that it's not in our insurance network. So insurance did not want me to go there. Instead, they wanted me to go to a different hospital, which I'd been to before. And I can't say that it's a horrible hospital, but I also can't say that it's a good hospital.
It is.
I would go there in a pinch.
It's a good hospital for what it provides. It's a community hospital, so it's limited on the things that it can do, its resources, because of the fact that it's basically a community general hospital. It is what you would expect from a community hospital. It's good. It's not horrible. It's not the worst hospital in the world. It's average. It's your average community hospital. Loma Linda, however, is a teaching hospital. So its resources are definitely more, they definitely have a lot more access to more and better resources because of the fact that a lot of their funding, because they're a teaching hospital, they get extra funding. They get the funding from tuition. On top of that, there's a lot of extra stuff that comes with hospitals like that versus regular hospitals, which is just an unfortunate truth. But I mean, if you're going to learn things, you need to be at a hospital that's going to have the latest technology in medical science. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You need to be
So-
able to learn the best. And I mean, and that's going to be how it is at most teaching hospitals. Emory is one of the better hospitals in Atlanta, which is where we went when we lived in Georgia. That was the hospital. That was one of the hospitals that we ended up going to as well. And the care there was...
It was spot on.
It was spot on. It was good.
Nevertheless, when I went there, after a day and a half of being in the emergency room, fighting with the insurance company, they admitted me. Comes to find out, it was not an abscess in my ankle. The bones in my foot and ankle joint had basically been infected to the point where they were virtually non-existent.
He had a bunch of air in the bones, according to the CT scan, left over by the bacteria. It was just creeping up the bones. And this is something, and we've been dealing with these ulcers on this particular foot for 10 years now. And a lot of this I actually have kept up. It's the pinned message. It's the pinned thread on my Twitter account. And it's titled Medical Saga on TikTok. So I was live. I was keeping up with it live because we had so many people that were so interested in what was going on. And thank you. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate everyone keeping up and wanting to know what was going on with us, wanting to know what was going on with Ron, checking in on me. Because of all of y'all keeping an air out, your prayers, your love, your, positivity out there has just really, we felt it. And we are so appreciative of it. I am definitely appreciative of it. And I really go into detail on a lot of that stuff. And ideally, I'd like to eventually turn it into a documentary. I don't know if that's going to happen, but this is definitely a long process. And Ron's taking a long time to say what happened, but he lost a leg.
Okay. Long story short, they couldn't fix what was wrong with my foot, so they had to chop it off.
His foot was to the point where it was unusable. It was literally unusable. And he's actually more active and more mobile now that it's been removed.
Yeah. 2 or 3 months, I'll have a prosthesis and I'll be able to walk again.
And that way he won't be stuck in the bed, which will be really nice.
Yeah. We'll be back to doing this in the same room.
Yes. Although I kind of like it in separate rooms, to be honest.
I know you do.
Because I just have more space and I can be able to move around and pay attention to everything without being like this. But maybe we'll have to make you a special green screen area. Yeah, my parents came out and helped me, I was afraid. I was afraid when my parents came out, but holy crap, I'm so grateful to my parents coming out, our friends. We have got we've got a lot of follow-up appointments this week. Yesterday was with the surgeon. The surgeon said that the wound is healing really, really well. We just went to the primary care physician today. He was extremely happy seeing Ron. He walked in and the first thing out of his mouth was, "You look better." The first thing out of his mouth was how good Ron looked. So this month, the month of April has been insane. It's been crazy. And a lot of you have actually asked if we have a GoFundMe to help us with the finances. We don't, but I do have a PayPal account. You can donate through the PayPal account. There's a direct link on our thread, on Twitter, Phoenix Nymphy. You can also come to the Twitch channel and just click on that and direct and link to that, because I transfer it into our bank account. So like it goes just write what it is so that I can keep up with it, so I know, okay, this is for this thing versus, just a donation or, just a tip or whatever. But yeah, thank you to everyone who has actually given to us. Like,
indeed. Thank you very much.
Holy crap.
I think you just froze on me. Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm trying not to cry because, one of the things that I do on my channel is I do charities, and I want to help people. And it is so freaking hard, especially in this country with medical stuff. It is so messed up, which is why I want to do a documentary on it, because of how effed up the medical system is. And the fact that we have to ask for donations to help us pay for our medical debt is horrible. And it just, the fact that so many people are just willing to just say, here, like, I am overwhelmed by the support of my community. And I am like, I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed with an amazing community. And y'all are seriously great. Seriously. And I love being able to give back when I can. And I'm so grateful for all the love. Now I'm freaking crying. God. We're here to talk about law. Which is also
sometimes the law makes people cry.
And tonight's topic's probably going to make me cry too. So to kind of wrap up, so we might as well, was there anything else that you wanted to say to that?
No, I just feel really blessed and lucky with all the people that have supported us.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that don't have any support.
Yeah. And we've been able, I will say, one of these, our particular situation has kind of helped open up a couple of people, a few others' eyes to how messed up the system is and how broken it is for people who are poor, how much more broken it is when you are poor, and how, like, I don't remember who it was I was having a conversation with, but they were like, I was like, yeah, and think about if we were a Black family or a Hispanic family or any marginalized community person. It's even worse. Or even if it was just me being a woman. The medical industry is very racist and sexist.
And this is the opinion portion of the show.
Well,
as there's no law involved in that particular statement.
And that's not saying, and I'm not saying that doctors and no. That's not what I mean. Individually, the medical people who work in the medical field are amazing people. But as a whole, because the insurance, especially because they are essentially practicing medicine when they're not medical professionals, are a huge problem. And they're the reasons why so many people fall through the cracks. Insurance is why so many people fall through the cracks.
Right. Now,
I mean, how many times have you heard...
From a legal standpoint, if the doctor says you need something, you should get that. Your insurance company should not have veto power over legitimate medical need. And when they do, then they are indeed practicing medicine without a license. And that should not be allowed.
Yes. In fact, we had 2 doctors that are in our network and our primary care physician. So kind of 3 doctors say that this hospital, Loma Linda, is the best hospital and that they recommended us going to that hospital. And our insurance tried to transfer us to a quote unquote in-network hospital. And I told the caseworker, just forget it. We'll pay for it. We'll deal with it, right? Insurance, after everything was said and done, because we told insurance to off, they okayed the referral because one of the doctors actually had sent in a referral to the insurance for us to go into Loma Linda Hospital. But we had to go into the emergency room before we could get the referral. Yeah, we got a referral to the hospital because of doctors recommending the hospital because they cannot sit. I mean, they kind of can't say no. Like when a doctor refers you to someone, they kind of they shouldn't have a choice to say no, in my opinion.
Right, Loma Linda is the only place to get specialized treatment out here.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But anyhow, enough about me.
Enough about medical stuff. We do want to talk about HIPAA laws at some point, though, because some of y'all folks don't seem to understand what the hell HIPAA laws are. However, we're not here for that. We actually want to talk about the Derek Chauvin trial. We want to wrap that up because we actually really wanted to talk more about that. And there's actually more that's going to happen afterwards. It's not over. It's not over. And people need to understand how trials work and that he has an opportunity to appeal it. We'll get into, I'm just kind of giving an overview of what we're doing and then we'll jump in. And then we're going to talk about the title of today's podcast, which is Anti-First Amendment's legislation. For some reason, I had segment stuck in my head. I don't know. Legislation, anti-First Amendment legislation. You're gonna want to listen to that. So Derek Chauvin, trials. All right, Ron.
Okay. He was found guilty.
Yes.
On all 3 counts.
Which he should have been.
His sentencing was scheduled for 8 weeks after the verdict came in. I'm not sure the day the verdict came in. I was in the hospital. But I'm pretty sure the sentencing will be about 6 weeks from now, and he stands on getting up to 40 years. Now,
they are aren't they averaging that out to like 12 and a half years or something like that?
12 and a half years.
For each thing. So that would still be over 20 years.
Except they'll probably do it not consecutively. Where he serves 12 and 12 and 12 kind of thing. They'll do it concurrently, where since he's a first offender, he'll serve the 12 years at the same time.
That's a thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it happens all the time. And then, with time off for good behavior, he'll probably end up actually spending 2/3 of that. So that's going to be about 8 years.
Now he could also get the full 40 years. Get the full
40. Yeah.
It did that's up to the judge.
Yeah, he'll get sentencing recommendations from the prosecution side. He'll get the sentencing recommendation from the defense side. And then there should be a short hearing where, the victim impact statements about how Mr. Floyd's death has impacted the family, the community.
Hell, it's affected the world. Literally. It's literally affected the world.
Right, but you can't have the entire world
come into it. I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's definitely, it's definitely impacted this country.
The defense will have a chance to bring whatever evidence they want. It's usually character witnesses. So you're going to hear probably
So this is
how
post trials. Like this is all the stuff that happens. This is why it takes so long to get his sentencing.
right, and then he's gonna say, "Oh, this guy's a great guy. He made one mistake," that kind of BS, and it'll go on and
But
on,
he
and the judge
didn't.
will
He's done
deliberate
it
and send.
multiple times before. It just didn't result in murder. He's yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I know. I'm
I'm
just saying
sorry.
what the defense is going to say. However, then he has so much time to appeal the sentence and appeal the verdict. They're going to do that, especially when the judge says that a particular politician said something before the jury was sequestered that could raise an appealable issue.
Oh wait.
Politicians have to stay out of uh, court trials. They need to shut the up. And this particular politician, I'm not going to name them, knows better.
Yeah, most of them are actually lawyers. So they should know
Uh,
better.
so the appealable issue is that this inflammatory statement from this particular congressman inflamed the jury and persuaded them to go one way and not the other.
So you think that you think that the defense is going to appeal on that?
Oh, yeah.
Dang.
I mean, there's some standard appealable issues like confusing jury instructions, which hardly ever works initially. Things of this, judge over reaching his discretion in the objections, those will all be brought up on appeal.
Yeah.
More than likely, not going to work. The congressman inflaming the jury appeal, that may result in a new trial.
So we could possibly go through all of this crap again.
Yes. Now,
that's going to be really tough to have to deal. That's going to be really hard to do because at this point, like everybody's been like, you're not going to find a jury that's not tainted, basically.
But if he wins his appeal, he wins the right to a new trial. The president was smart enough, at least, to not say anything until the jury was sequestered away and wouldn't be able to hear it. But politicians should not say anything about how a verdict should go before the verdict comes in. Period.
Wow. That's a shame because the guy deserves jail.
I think he deserves more than 40 years, but
I think he deserves life in prison because he murdered a dude. One, he murdered a guy on duty as a cop who is allegedly supposed to protect and service. Two, it's not his first time screwing with people. He's been not punished, but he's gotten into trouble multiple times before. I think they said there were 17 incidences.
See, and that
prior to this,
that police department should have gotten rid of him.
Right. And that's why, I mean, that's a whole other thing. But what is it? Watch John Oliver's last week tonight on police unions. He goes into detail about police unions and how they work and why it is so hard to fire cops. It is a beautiful piece. I highly recommend it. You can probably find it on YouTube. They tend to highlight their big pieces like that. So John Oliver's police, just Google it.
And generally, government unions, whether it's a police union, teachers union, whatever union, are great at protecting
They're people.
They're people.
That's what they're supposed to do.
And in the 50s, in this country, the unions were great at protecting the workers of America. Opinion piece again, nothing to do with the law here. Now we don't have a whole lot of unions. Our workers are not being protected by anybody. They have to exist on the goodwill of their employer. And most employers' goodwill has stopped.
Yeah.
Nevertheless,
Yeah.
onward to our topics.
Yeah, they should have voted to unionize in Alabama over the Amazon stuff. But anyway, that is my opinion and my opinion alone. All right, so anti-protest laws. And that, yes, that's right. Anti-protest laws are anti-First Amendment legislation. Absolutely correct. That is a factual statement that I just said.
Right. And this, not only there are new voter suppression laws.
These are not new, though. Voter suppression laws have been around for
but they're enacting new ones. I mean, this is really the era of a new Jim Crow.
Yes, it is a new Jim Crow era. It's a new Jim Crow type laws. And as I'm just gonna shut my mouth and let you talk.
Okay. And historically, I know everyone says that you bring up this particular regime that you lose the argument. However, historically, when the Nazis set out to legally disenfranchise and discriminate against Jewish citizens, they just didn't come up with their ideas out of thin air. They closely studied the laws of another country. And if you read James Q. Whitman's book, Hitler's American Model, the country they studied the most was the United States.
What?
Yeah. And they looked at American race laws in the early 1900s and modeled a lot of the initial laws against Jewish people in the mid 30s based on our laws against people of color. Bet a lot of people didn't know that.
I didn't. No, I had no idea. I mean, the similarities in the last from the last 4 years and the beginning of the Nazi Party, it's uncanny. I mean, how many Holocaust survivors have come out and said that what we're dealing with is exactly what they went through before Hitler took over?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a false equivalency. I know there's that rule that when you're on the internet, when people bring up Hitler and Nazism, the conversation's over.
The guy who who created that rule has also come out and said there's an exception.
Yes, there is.
And that exception is when you are spot on.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it appears we're being spot on.
It is. It's an unfortunate
so
it's not unfortunate. It is unfortunate, but it's something that we could stop. We can stop it.
Right. So you got laws in Georgia now where you need new identification. And they took the power away from the Secretary of State to basically oversee local election boards.
And the thing is, Brian Kemp, the current governor, during the election was over the election process and was over getting the voting machines to places and where they had to go. And conveniently, voter machines were not used and just sitting in the back of, like, there's photos and videos of them in storage units at polling places and not being used. And they weren't allowed to pull them out to be used. And the lines are, miles long. And so, like, there is proof, there is evidence of voter fraud already in the state of Georgia. And we were living there at the time during that election. We actually moved in the middle of that election. So our vote...
I got to correct. It's not voter fraud. It's voter suppression.
I'm sorry, voter suppression. So our vote that year was actually part of that whole thing. And so that really frustrates me as a voter, that my stuff isn't being seen. It's not being heard. And every single one of the investigations that have gone through have proven that actually the voter fraud that happened during the 2020 election happened on the Republican side. And it wasn't even that many. It was like, out of the entire country, I want to say it was like 160. Like, it was a really low number.
Yeah, it was like 0.0004% or something like that.
It was a very low percent.
And knowing that the lines are going to be hours long in non-white areas, they also passed the law that you can't pass out food and water to people in line to vote.
Right.
What does that have to do with voter fraud? Getting food and water. If me and Ashley were waiting in a line, I could not go out to the car and get 2 bottles of water and give her one. I would then be guilty of a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
That is beyond bullshit.
Well, I want to know, like, how, okay, so that is so their excuse, their reasoning for having that particular law in place is because you can't campaign within 100 yards of a polling place, right?
Right.
So I can get it if
legitimate.
You're giving... yes, it's a legitimate concern, but I can get it. I get it if you are giving away water bottles with people's names on it, right? Like, you're giving a water bottle that has Bernie Sanders' face on it. Yeah, okay. No, that shouldn't be given out. That's a legitimate concern, but that's not what people were doing. They were bringing food. They were bringing just food and water to people, so they weren't sitting out there in the heat, because Georgia gets hot. I have passed out in the Georgia heat many times. It gets hot there.
Right.
And when you are putting people outside, giving them no shade, you're going to have people pass out. You're going to have medical issues on hand. Are you going to be able? So my next question is, if you can't give out food and water, what about when someone does actually pass out and they have to be given water? Are you going to arrest the EMTs for doing their job?
Technically, it would be a misdemeanor. However, they would have
fine the EMTs for doing their job.
They would have a defense to that in order to save the life of another.
Right.
You can't...
Giving water to someone in the middle of Georgia heat is literally saving someone's life.
In order to, and this is a defense for a lot of crimes, you can break a law in order to save the life of another person. You cannot kill someone else. Well, you can kill someone else. If you're defending another person.
It's a fine line that is always played out in court. So it's not a general statement.
The red light in order to get somebody to an ER. They're bleeding out. You can run the red light.
I'd fight that.
You're going to get a ticket, but you can successfully fight it.
Well, I mean, what if you hurt someone in the process?
You're going to be liable for whoever you hurt in the process.
Yeah. So, I mean, again,
You can't
it's
hurt people.
complicated.
You can break laws
Oh, I
to
see what you're
protect the life
saying.
of another person.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
So what I would love to see in Georgia, the next vote, and this would be a religious based charity going to the lines, handing out water and food because they have the religious liberty to do so, because Christ said, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me water. I was naked and you gave me clothes.
I mean, any religion, not just Christianity, like any religion. Yeah.
Right. I specifically say that because Georgia's in the middle of the Bible Belt.
Now, as far as it being anti-First Amendment, can you kind of explain why these laws are anti-First Amendment? What is the First Amendment? Explain it.
The voter suppression specifically does not address anything in the First Amendment.
Right.
Okay. So the voter suppression is anti-constitutional because everybody has the right to vote in a democracy.
Okay.
And suppressing the right to vote is suppressing your civil rights. It's not specifically suppressing your First Amendment rights. And now we'll get into the First Amendment.
Okay.
And what the anti-protest laws are doing. The First Amendment prohibits any laws that establish a national religion, impede the free exercise of religion, abridge the freedom of speech, infringe upon the freedom of the press, interfere with the right to peaceably assemble, or prohibit citizens from petitioning for a government redress of their grievances.
You're talking. Wait, are you talking about?
That is the First Amendment.
Okay, that also, hold up.
Yeah.
The right to what? Peaceably what?
Peaceably assemble.
That's called a protest.
Yes.
And there's also anti-protest laws that people have that they're implementing to stop people from going out to protest. Wait, so you mean to tell me that the voter suppression and the protest laws are both offending the First Amendment? Are both anti-First Amendment?
I'm telling you the voter suppression laws are anti-constitutional. The anti-protest laws are anti-First Amendment.
Oh, gotcha.
There's nothing in the First Amendment about you having the right to vote.
That is your constitutional right.
Right.
The amendments, that's right, because the amendments came in and amended who has the right to vote, which
specifically the 14th Amendment and 13th Amendment did that after the Civil War.
Yes, and then the 19th for women.
Right.
So the 13th, the 14th, and the 19th are the ones who are the ones that actually, the amendments that establish who has the right to vote.
Yes.
So, okay.
So first of all, your anti-protest laws and the freedom of speech.
I feel like we're all over the place right now.
We are.
I feel I'm really, really sorry. I haven't been tested yet, but I'm pretty confident I have ADHD, and it's really kicking in because my mind is going 1,000 miles a minute, and I want to know all the things. I want to know all the things. So the voter suppression. Okay. Yes. Cause you're okay. Let's go back to that.
Okay.
So on the voter suppression, that is very Jim Crow. That's very Jim Crow-esque.
Yes.
Okay, can you explain how that is a Jim Crow? This thought is stuck in my head, and I want to say this, and then we'll go back to this. I grew up in Georgia, and when I registered to vote at the age of 17, and I was so freaking proud to be able to vote. That was something that I was so proud to be able to do. And every time we had to vote, I always had to bring the voter card plus my ID. That was just the law in Georgia. I didn't think anything of it. And then I came to California. We moved to California, and then we had the voting. Then we had to vote here. And when we went to vote here, I went up and they never asked me for my ID or my voter card. They asked me for my name. And that blew my mind. That blew my mind because how did they know that I'm not there to vote as someone else?
They don't.
Right.
And yet, they haven't found evidence of widespread voter fraud in California.
Right. Because and in looking more into it, I've learned that it's actually a little difficult to get an ID. I mean, homeless people, for example, have the right to vote. They have the right to vote. They have the God-given constitutional right to vote. They don't necessarily have IDs because they're homeless. They don't have an address. They don't have any way to have an ID. How do they get a chance to vote?
They don't, because
exactly.
Not having an address means that they can't be voting in any particular district.
Oh.
And if you don't live in a district, you can't vote for your representative, for example.
Oh. But they still.
Now, you asked me a question. Okay. You asked me a question.
If we got rid of, hear me out. If we got rid of the whole gerrymandering and that bull crap and just went based off of, okay, California has like a bajillion people in it. All right, let's just do the top like 5 representatives, and that's who gets to go to however amount we get in the House. That's who gets to go, instead of them representing each district. They're representing California.
Right.
I mean, if we didn't have districts, we wouldn't have to worry.
Gerrymandering.
If we didn't have districts, we wouldn't have to worry about. It'd be another thing. We wouldn't have to worry about.
Right. This is an entirely different.
I'm getting off topic. Okay, I'm sorry.
If you want to stop gerrymandering, we can do a podcast on that.
I will put that in our topics, gerrymandering.
Yeah, because it's common.
Okay.
The census is over. They're going to be redrawing district lines.
Yep, they are redistricting, which is so dumb.
You asked me, how are these voter suppression laws Jim Crow?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't know what people know what Jim Crow laws are.
I do, because I grew up in the South. I am fully aware of what Jim Crow laws. I actually know the answer to this, but I've learned from you. You don't ask questions you don't know the answer to if you want to be good at doing the lawyer thing.
Right. So, in a nutshell, Jim Crow laws were laws passed to suppress any kind of representation or any kind of education of people of color, generally in the South, but it happened all over the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. They were just more prominent in the South.
Right.
But so there are pictures.
So for example.
Sorry.
One of the Jim Crow laws is that African Americans couldn't drink out of the white drinking faucet, or couldn't go to a white bathroom. They had to have their own facility.
I mean,
and so
like the one that started the Jim Crow law or the civil rights movement essentially was the bus.
You had to sit in the back of the
Right.
bus.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't get that, but other than you just wanted to separate the people.
They didn't. Okay, so it was the idea that it was okay. Think of it like the in
'Cause-
India you have the untouchables,
Yeah,
right? You can't touch them or their disease or whatever will spread, right? Like I know I am fully aware that that is a very white statement to say. I don't fully understand the caste system in India. That is a generalized statement. Don't come at me. If you want to educate me and give me more detail on that, I would greatly appreciate it. However, in general, that is what it is. So that is the idea of what the Jim Crow laws were.
right.
Because if you are white and you touched a black person, whatever their blackness was and whatever, because they were looked at and they are treated as if they are diseased. And you don't want that.
These laws were not passed until after quote unquote Reconstruction ended. During the Reconstruction phase after the Civil War, you actually had African Americans that were elected to Congress.
Yeah.
After Reconstruction,
you had you had slaves that became successful business people.
Yeah. After Reconstruction, you basically had to wait until the 50s and 60s before any African Americans were voted into any kind of office. And one of the reasons is Jim Crow laws passed a poll tax. In order to vote, you had to pay a fee. Similarly,
that's right. I forgot about that.
Similarly now, you have to pay for your driver's license. So in order to
or
vote,
even just the state ID.
Yeah. In order to vote now, you have to put out the money for your ID. To me, that's a poll tax. If they want an ID to vote, they can give it out to people for free.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I believe that there has been some federal courts that say an ID requirement is not a poll tax.
But the thing is, not everybody has money to go buy an ID, and sometimes you have to replace it, right? Like,
and how many people living in nursing homes have the time to go or the ability to go to the DMV or DDS and wait in line for hours to get that ID?
Not just in nursing homes. What about disability people? Like you, for example. Right now in the state you're in, you couldn't go get your ID by yourself.
No, I would need help.
You would need help.
Yeah. So they would suppress my vote.
Yeah.
Another Jim Crow law was literacy test. You couldn't read, you couldn't vote. And they made sure you couldn't read because they wouldn't give you the education to read. So now, instead of being so blatant about it, these new laws, what they're doing is they're giving themselves the power to determine where the ballot boxes are. So, and this happened in Georgia in 2020 initially. You were going to have one ballot box in the rural section where it was a person of color majority, and there was one ballot box. You would have to drive in 2 hours. You know, the one ballot box, the early drop off box or whatever you want to call it, serviced a huge area. Whereas you went to someplace like Alpharetta, which is
predominantly white,
predominantly, I'm going to say wealthy.
Oh, it is definitely an affluent neighborhood.
you had 15, 20 or so drop-off boxes. And
Not
now
everybody has transportation.
right. So now,
And here's my question about it. Like, if we don't want, and I want people to think about this who are on both sides, right? Seriously, think about what I'm about to say. If you want people to actually vote, if you actually want people to vote and be a part of the government process, would it not be beneficial to give everyone the ability to vote and make it more convenient and easier for everyone to be able to vote? If you actually care about vote, if you actually care about voting, you don't have to answer that question, babe. This is just a question I want people to think about.
right. And so now they've given themselves even broader powers to determine where all these drop boxes are going to be and who can and cannot get absentee ballots. So if you can't get an absentee ballot and you can't get to a drop box, you don't get to vote. And a majority of these suppressed places are majority people of color.
So yeah, it's a new version of Jim Crow laws.
Yeah. And they've also given the state officials the power to overrule local election boards, the ones that are actually doing the counting.
Okay, but if they're not doing the counting, why did they have what point?
Because they've given themselves the power to say, oh, there's fraud here.
You don't know that. You're not the one counting.
We're not going to certify your board.
You're not the one counting, so you can't make that decision.
Doesn't matter. They passed a law.
Well, I know for a fact
to oppose this.
I know for a fact that ACLU has filed a lot of ACLU does so much work. They do so much good work. They have filed a bunch of lawsuits against every single one of these in all the states that these have been hit, including the anti-protest laws, which we'll get to. But specifically the voter suppression laws, they've been, and I know that Stacey Abrams also is fighting in Georgia.
Right. And so what people need to do is make sure that they are on the list because they're getting purged every so often.
And we've said this before, always check. Yeah. If you have the ability to check, help your friends, help your neighbors, help the people who, help the elderly, make sure that their names are on, make sure that they have not been purged on the list, because they do purge the list naturally, but they're starting to purge the list a little bit more than they need to.
Right. And it's easier to purge the list by area you live in.
Yeah.
Make sure you if you don't have an ID, get an ID. If you know people that can't get an ID, help them get an ID. And do it early.
I think there are, you know what? I need to look. I think there are some programs that are specifically helping people get there.
If you wait till the last minute, you're not going to be able to vote. Because that's what they want. And my opinion, if you don't want people to vote, you are not for the American system. You are un-American. Period.
Wow, holy crap. In California, there is actually a program called South County Outreach where they get free IDs for homeless.
Yeah. That's California, though.
Yeah. So just do a quick Google search. There are people out there that are helping get people their IDs. Look on Twitter, follow Twitter. I believe Stacey Abrams I keep bringing her up, but she's one of my favorite people. She's doing so much with the voter suppression thing right now. And she's advocating hardcore to get those laws removed. She went through and did a massive, for the 2020 election, she helped get people bussed in to be able to vote. So definitely check that stuff out. Just, quick Google search. I just did a 10-second Google search and found so many resources just for California for free IDs. So right. Unfortunately, that's California. That's not everywhere.
I don't think we can say much more in the podcast about it, and yet you could speak volumes about voter suppression.
Yeah. Legally speaking, the only thing that you can do is jump on with ACLU, the what's the other one? There's another one. That's it's the blue it's the blue with the we donate to them like every month.
The HRC?
HRC, yes. I believe they're also doing stuff as well. So check with those resources. I know in Atlanta, anything that Stacey Abrams is involved with, check it out. Lost and Found Youth is really good for LGBT, for the Alphabet Mafia. And there's a couple of other resources like that are involved. You just have to look. You have to do that research for your local area. And the
Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yes, that you actually want to work for. They're also doing stuff. So if you want to get involved, check those places out. They're working very hard to try and stop these, and go to the protest. If you see protest, go to the protest. Because if you are arrested, yeah, be peaceful. Don't riot. That's for anyone,
Anyone, any side. Don't be violent.
Be peaceful. You have the right to protest.
You don't have the right to be violent in your protest.
And I'm going to say this right here. Most of the Black Lives Matter riots that happen are not Black Lives Matter people. They're not. They're not anyone associated with those protests. It's other people who want to make it look like it's Black Lives Matter. And there's been evidence and articles and research and everything about those. So do your research. Don't just take our word for this. Do your research too. We're just a starting place. We're just a platform.
Yeah, we're here to
help educate you, but we are not the end all be all to everything.
No. You should, and always look into and do your own research.
And always question. Question
both sides.
Yes.
The media right now, the press right now, should be putting the screws to the Biden administration.
Yes.
Which they never really did to Trump, which they never really did to Obama, which they never really did to Bush, and they never really did to Clinton.
The stuff that is happening at the border that the Biden administration is dealing with, they're not doing it well. So,
no.
And that is off topic, but as someone who voted for Biden, I'm not a cult follower. I'm not woohoo Biden. No, I don't like a lot of the stuff that he does. And to be honest, I didn't vote for Biden. I voted for Kamala Harris. I voted for the VP.
Well, I made the check. I got to be honest. I made the check mark for Biden. I voted against Trump.
Oh, I mean, that obviously, that's obvious. But
I have voted more against people in my life than I have voted for people.
and that's not saying I don't think Biden has done good. I think he has done a lot of good. He's definitely done more good in his first 100 days than Trump ever has, in my opinion.
Right.
But he's also doing some things poorly, which we should hold. And we have the right to hold these people accountable. They're our government. They're working for us. They're working for us. We have the right, and we should question what they're doing. If you think that your representatives are not doing what you think they should be doing, you have every right to ask them and tell them peacefully with protest, calling, writing letters, sending emails.
Now, the headline of this podcast is anti-protest laws. We should get to that.
Anti-First Amendment laws. Yes, anti-protest laws, which could kind of fall under the Jim Crow kind of stuff. If you think about it, because the people who do the most protesting are the marginalized communities. And because they're the ones who are not in power.
Right. And from the research I did, I'm sure more have been filed. There have been 81 anti-protest bills filed in 34 states this year alone.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yep. And over the last year, 96% of the protests, which were mainly over Mr. Floyd's killing, involved no property damage or police injury.
Right?
I don't want to downplay the 4% that did, because it shouldn't have happened. You've got the protest in Portland that seemingly is damaging the federal building almost nightly.
Jesus.
Shouldn't happen.
No, but the point of this is the amount of protest. It just kind of backs up the statement I made earlier. The amount of protests that actually have people rioting is very low.
Right.
And we don't, people who protest and actually do that stuff do not condone that kind of behavior either. You're going to have bad seeds in every group, right? And you disassociate from those people, right? You cannot, you're not going to 100% not have bad things. On the other hand, when every protest you do is like the Capitol insurrection, that's a problem. And that's literally almost every KKK rally.
Okay, now protests themselves encompass two rights given to you by the First Amendment: your freedom of speech and your freedom to peaceably assemble. Note the word peaceably. That's what a protest is. You are exercising your First Amendment rights. Now, what they're doing is they're trying to say in most of these
the bills,
laws or bills, they're not laws until they're passed. In most of these bills is that the purpose of your assembly is to cause violence. And therefore, any of these protests are going to be against the law, and you're going to be subject to arrest and jail time and fines merely for exercising your First Amendment rights.
How can you prove that they're there to Okay, you know what? Let's compare it to the January 6th riot, to any George Floyd any of the 96% George Floyd protest. Let's go with the Black Lives Matter walk that I was involved in back in Georgia. I haven't done any since I've been here, just because medical stuff and the pandemic, and I would rather not get sick. But I went to when I go protest, I have no intention to hurt anyone. The point is to make a point, is to protest and, like, show that Black Lives Matter. It like, that's what a protest is for.
Right.
That's why you go to the Capitol and you protest. Been to the Capitol for protest as well. Like, you go there because you want to be heard. And that's the point. You want to be heard because you're not being heard. This is what a protest is for.
Right.
How can you say that someone who is marching down Peachtree Street is there to be violent, whereas you can watch what happened on January 6th and you can see that they wanted violence? Like,
yeah, you got to go fight if you want your country back.
It doesn't equal.
Doesn't matter with these laws they're passing. If you're part of, and I will take Florida's law because it's passed and been signed by the governor as an example for all this.
Oh yeah, he's an idiot.
Now, number one, your freedom of speech. You have a freedom of speech, but the First Amendment only applies to government action. You don't have a freedom of speech in your workplace. You don't have freedom of speech in a store.
Right.
You only have freedom of speech that the government cannot suppress.
So, like, if you wanted to come up to me in public and tell me that, I'm a liberal hippie piece of shit, garbage human being, you have every right to do that. I also have every right to punch you back if I wanted to.
Fighting words.
Right.
There's a whole area of laws is
like, I have
freedom of speech and fighting words. That's why you do not have a right to yell fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah.
That is not government action. But you do have the right to speak to government officials or show the government that you're not happy. You can say whatever the hell you want. In fact, there is symbolic speech. It doesn't even have to be words, which is where you get the whole flag burning issue from.
Oh, but you can't burn the flag because of the Patriot Act that was signed into place by George Bush after 9/11.
Freedom of speech in a political protest, you can burn the flag.
And you know what? When I was in Girl Scouts, I learned that that's actually how you're supposed to destroy the flag.
Right.
So
if your flag touches the ground, you're supposed to burn it because it's become dirty.
Which I find very weird. The laws that our country has about the stupid flag. It's a flag. And most of it is made in Taiwan or China. Like, it's
try and find an
like
American flag made in America.
It's not like it's actual cloth either. It's like some disgusting polyester crap. So
it all depends who makes it. Now, the second part of the protest is your freedom to peaceably assemble. And the way they're trying to, and that's it. You have a right to peaceably assemble. Now, what they're trying to do, and for the most part, protest organizers comply with this, is you got to get a permit.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay.
You don't
Where in the
just
Constitution does it say you need a permit to peaceably assemble? Absolutely effing nowhere.
But the county laws, the state laws ask that you do that so that you can
So that they can have
cops
some
there.
notice and cops. And
Yeah.
right. I
It's
understand that, but it also gives them the right to say, no, we can't give you a permit for that.
oh. I mean, there are some people who have done it anyway, protested anyway.
Right. Recently in Huntington Beach, you had
KKK.
out the Huntington Beach Pier a KKK rally.
Literally a KKK rally.
Right. You had a bunch of counter protesters come.
Yep.
I do not know that the KKK had a permit.
I'm not going to
For that.
say whether or not they did.
Right. But even if they didn't, they had the right to assemble there. Even without the permit.
Yeah.
You know. Now they had 10 times the number of counter protesters, and their rally broke up very shortly, thank God. But Huntington Beach is one of the more extreme.
It's my favorite
cities
beach,
in
and it
Orange
makes me
County.
sad. It's my favorite
Yeah.
beach, and it makes me sad that it's full of white supremacists.
Yeah.
That's
Now,
also where all of the, if you've seen the stories about protesters going into the Kroger's and the grocery stores to yell at people for wearing masks, Huntington Beach. That's where most of it happens.
Now the Florida law is already, there's a lawsuit from it to be enacted. However, a lot of public disorder misdemeanors previously in Florida are now going to be considered felonies. Why? Because they like to say that felons cannot vote.
Wait, but didn't they pass that law in Florida that felons could vote? But they're dragging their feet on it.
You don't owe the state any money for reparations or fines.
Okay.
And you're out of your probation period.
Yeah, they're dragging their feet on that because that was not a caveat originally on the ballot.
Right. Usually when a protester gets arrested, they're either released on their own recognizances or there's a minimal bail that they give to the police and they don't have to see a judge. It's now been changed. In Florida, you don't get bail until you see a judge, which if your protest is on a Friday, you're not going to see a judge at best until Monday. So you're going to be spending the weekend in jail.
This sounds like, I feel like, did they try to pass some of these things during the civil rights movement? Because I feel like Martin Luther King Jr. has actually gone through that very scenario. Sat in jail. Like, I mean, he sat in jail many times, but I feel like he sat in jail waiting to see a judge so that he could get bail. Like that specific, I feel like I remember reading about that. And they wouldn't release him until a judge would set bail, and the judge just wouldn't set bail. Wow. Oh my God.
Now, they've also defined a new category of crime called mob intimidation, which is defined in the law as two or more people using the threat of force to change someone's viewpoint.
Okay, well then.
That is so very vague and overbroad.
KKK members can't get together and do either.
Oh, what about anti-abortionists yelling at people going into a Planned Parenthood?
According to that law, they can't
That
do
is
that now.
Right. And a riot is defined as at least 3 people who pose a clear and present danger to someone or something. And it's very vague too.
Okay.
So it gives them, the law gives the police teeth basically to arrest whoever the hell they want because, well, there's 3 people over there and they're posing a clear and present danger.
That's so dangerous because you could be together with some friends and not even be doing anything. But because it looks like you're, posing a clear and present danger because you're a bunch of black people in an affluent neighborhood trying to grill out at the park.
The George Floyd situation. You had some people that were yelling at the cops.
Well, I mean, their
Mr.
defense
Ford
was he was being distracted.
Right. Now, those cops, if they were subject under this law, could say, that's 3 more people. They're presenting a clear and present danger to me. I'm going to arrest them all.
And to that, I say good luck. But
was that really a riot? Oh, if they weren't compliant, they would have just been shot.
Right. Yeah.
Was that really a riot because they didn't want Mr. Floyd murdered?
No.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious. What is a riot? What's the definition
now
of a riot?
Every state is different.
Okay. According to the dictionary.
Okay.
Here, let's look up Merriam-Webster. Merriam-Webster. Okay. Riot. Let's just look at the description. I'm curious what Merriam-Webster's a violent public disorder, specifically a tumultuous disturbance of the public peace by 3 or more persons assembled together and acting with a common public violence, tumult, or disorder. 2, a random or disorderly profusion. 3, one that is okay. That's okay. Yeah. So, wow.
Now, Florida's law also gives the state the power to override local police budgets. So if a local police force, a local police, or a local city police budget's too much and they try and cut it, the state can step in and say, no, you have to give them this much money or even more money.
Oh, Florida.
Yeah. Also, they have a very vague description of inciting a riot, where it's going to be up to the discretion of the police on hand. And from what I can tell, the last truly full-blown riot they had in Florida was in 1989. When a Miami police officer was acquitted for the shooting death of an unarmed African American. That was 32 years ago. And Florida, meanwhile, already had laws on the books dealing with this. And they apparently have worked for the most part for the last 32 years.
I guess they're not good enough. They just want to stop people from protesting because they just don't want to deal with it.
Right.
They just don't want to deal with it. But the thing is, and what I don't understand about Republicans, specifically Republican lawmakers, because they do this all the time, Democrats do as well, but not as much as Republicans do. They put laws into place that also shoot themselves in the foot. Like, your laws, yes, they are definitely going to suppress Black people and marginalized communities, but they also are going to affect you. White supremacist and KKK members, yeah. You're gonna stop them from rioting? Because if you don't, you're gonna stop them from protesting? Because if you don't, you're definitely gonna have a riot on your hands. Like,
Right.
You're just making more problems instead of you're not creating solutions to anything with stuff like this. You're actually causing more problems.
One of the things that is kind of celebrated from, our revolution back in the 1700s was the Boston Tea Party.
We threw tea into the water. Dressed as Native Americans.
We did.
Really
However,
offensive.
we just outlawed the Boston Tea Party, if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We just outlawed protests to the Boston Massacre in 1770 when some English soldiers shot colonials, which, by the way, they were found not guilty, being represented by our second president, John Adams.
I don't know much about that particular set of history.
Yeah.
But we're running out of time, so we're not going to get into detail on that specific. I'll have to go look it up on my own time.
But we have a history in this country of taking to the streets and protesting injustice.
That's why
it is
why it's in
right
the amendments.
And a tradition in our origin story. And generally, the same people that are putting these laws into place now worship, basically, those old stories and how this country came to be.
Well,
yeah, they do.
They do. They also think that we have a clean slate. We came in and created something out of nothing here.
Right. That's what Rick Santorum said.
And to Rick Santorum, dude, the reason why there was a clean slate is because we caused genocide. It's called genocide. Genocide causes a clean slate. When you kill people, when you go into another country and you kill people and you get rid of them, of course you're going to have a clean slate and you're going to be able to build from nothing because you destroyed everything. And to that, we're gonna leave on that note. America's great, isn't it? Fantastic. I hope you can hear the sarcasm in my voice.
America is powerful. America is wealthy. Those two things do not necessarily make a country great.
No. Anything else you want to say on the anti First Amendment legislation that's being passed? I think only Florida has passed the actual laws. So there are only laws in Florida right now, right? Or what other states?
Oklahoma's passed a law.
Okay, Oklahoma's passed a few.
I do believe,
not surprising about that. I'm not gonna lie.
A number of these laws are saying it's okay to unintentionally hit protesters.
Oh, the car thing. Yeah, because you're trying to get at, why are you driving through protesters in the first place?
Right. Now, if you unintentionally hit, Oklahoma is one of the ones that have passed what are called the hit and kill bill. If you unintentionally hit somebody with your car while you're, thinking you're going to be hurt, you already have a defense for that. You don't need a law.
Right.
But a lot of people that are seeing these laws passed are saying, "Oh, I can drive into
Yeah.
a protest." That's not unintentional.
I mean, I
You
will
can,
say when I've done protests, we've actually walked down streets and actually stopped cars. Which, obviously that's the point of a protest, is to disrupt what's happening so that you will pay attention to that's the point of a protest. But we never put anyone in harm's way. We were on a street that,
right.
and so we weren't in the highway. Like the protests that go out into the highway. I mean, I know there's a lot that happen. I'm not doing that because no. Surface streets is a little bit different because they can't go that fast anyway. But like going out onto like freaking I-90 or I-60 to do a protest, but I know why it's done. And I know, like, I hear all the arguments of, all you're doing is just pissing people off. And yeah, but you're listening, aren't you? You're talking about it, aren't you? You're paying attention, aren't you? That's the point of a protest. You are talking about it. That's the point of protest. Even if you are angry at the things that people are doing in the middle of that protest and saying and stuff, you are talking about it. And that is the point.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on for hours with some of these.
Yeah, we could, and we really need to wrap this up. This has been a little bit longer just because we have been on a hiatus all month.
Yes.
So, everybody who's been listening to the past podcast while we've been on hiatus, thank you. Like, we haven't uploaded a podcast in a couple weeks, and like we still got listens. Like, thank you, whoever you are listening to our podcast. Thank you. You're amazing.
I agree. So, just in a nutshell, get ready to vote, even if a vote is not coming up.
Yes.
Learn what your freedom of speech rights are and learn what your peaceful assembly rights are.
Yes, absolutely. What is happening?
If you need to get a permit to peaceably assemble, go through the motions and get the permit. If they deny you, Constitution says you can still peaceably assemble. Just be prepared for some resistance.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much, everyone, for just hanging out. Thank you for being here.
And once again, I'd like to say thank you for the support you've given me.
Yes, thank you for the support. We hope some of you like us, so we want to continue doing this. And so for those of you that are listening, thank you so much for listening to us. If you like the podcast, please make sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, like us on Spotify, thumbs up, subscribe on YouTube. We are available on all your favorite listening places. I think I use Libsyn and I try to put it everywhere. So if there's a place that you prefer to listen to and we're not on there, let me know. And I will try and get us on there. Please, though, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. If you you can find oh my God, I'm failing so bad at this closing. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share in all your favorite places. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review. You can find it hosted on Twitch at twitch.tv/PhoenixNymphy live every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. That is 9 p.m. Eastern. Use the hashtag learningthelaw on all social media. I use it to post about this on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all of those awesome things. And you can follow more over there. You can find Ron on Twitter at NecroKijo. You can find me on social media platforms at Phoenix Nymphy. If you have any questions,
I just want to say NecroKijo is NecroKijo.
Okay. If you have any questions, please tweet, comment, or email us at twolazydogsmedia@gmail.com. This has been a Two Lazy Dogs production. Have a wonderful night.
Bye, everyone.